So today we're going to be talking about how to build Flowracks using the Flexpipe Creator Extension with the SketchUp software. So if you are here, it's because you've probably already have the creator as well as the software and are using it already. If you're new, you can always check out videos on YouTube to go ahead and update yourself with what we're going to be seeing here today. If you find it a little bit challenging, you can always head back to the YouTube and look for the beginning videos to how to build the structures. For today, we're really just focusing on how to build Flowracks. Very quickly here, we're going to show you a slide, and I'm working in SketchUp, so we're going to be bouncing from my little makeshift slides there to this little kind of Flexpipe studio that we have here with the different kinds of Flowracks that we have made in the past. All these have been drawn here, and they have been are being utilized somewhere in the world. So these are working structures, and as you can see, we'll have all the different examples that we're going to be going over today. With any of these Flowracks, it's always the same. First things first is that we're going to basically figure that we have 10 essential steps that we need to always cover. Very important that we do this. First thing is that we want to go ahead and choose a container. We want to understand what kind of a container we are using. We want to define the footprint. So before I actually jump into the footprint, let me just say that the container is either going to be a plastic, it's either going to be a box, a tote. Is it a standalone part that we're going to be using? All these things we need to understand in order to get to defining the footprint. Okay, so that's the first thing. Once we get to the footprint, we're going to head over to the layout, the path of the conveyor path rather, and then whether or not it's going to be a supermarket or whether or not it's going to be a flow rack with a minimum and a maximum. So following these steps, we're going to get to the top or bottom level container return, should you have a return container. We're also going to be talking about defining heights and levels, defining the slopes depending on the span of your flow rack. And then we're going to get into the container stoppers and the divide zones for the individual parts, bins that you may need to separate within your flow rack. And then we'll close it all up with the increased loading capacity. So we're going to talk about how to be able to solidify those structures. So let's go ahead and jump into the first one here. So choosing the container, what we want to think about when we're choosing a container is that we're thinking about dimensions, right? We're thinking about the length, the width, the height. Remember to have a flat bottom surface bin container so that you avoid hitting any uneven levels on the bottom or any contours of a bin that may essentially catch on the conveyor wheels. So always head for a flat bottom bin to be able to really have a smooth descending slope. When you're looking at weight, we want to understand how much, right? We want to understand how much is really going to be per bin, and then in general, how much is going to be on top of this particular flow rack, okay? We don't want to put too much weight where we're going to be stressing the actual conveyors and maybe even slowing down the wheels by having so much weight on top of these conveyor wheels, right, or these flow racks. And then again, like I mentioned before, the materials, is it going to be a plastic, is it a cardboard or a standalone part? So these are the things that we want to think about when we're choosing our container. When we're defining a footprint, we need to understand what that is, and that's basically we're determining the required space for the rack. So we need to understand what is the available area. It varies from factory to shop to wherever you might be using this particular flow rack. It really is, you need to understand how you can configure your own individual setup to be able to go ahead and incorporate a flow rack into the structure. So having said that, we're either going to be moving material from point A to point B. And then we can also think about a supply workstation where the materials are being delivered to this particular workstation, which has a flow rack in the as part of the workstation, so that you can go ahead and have the materials be delivered to you when you need it, as opposed to a move from point A to point B kind of setup. We're gonna show you all these examples pretty soon, so don't worry about that. We're gonna be we'll be able to go ahead and make the difference between what is the point A to point B and a supply workstation. So again, if you have just joined us, make sure to please mute your mics. The conveyor path layout, that is this is how we're going to be able to measure the distance the container will cover between the point A to point B. So we need to make sure that we have that measurement when we're thinking about the overall layout and how we're going to begin to draw this flow rack. The longer the distance, we need to think that the greater the slopes incline will have to be. And so that's going to, we're going to talk about heights. If we're starting at a point with that is very high up in destination, it's going to end up very low at the other end. So we need to think about what exactly we can get away with as far as heights for an ergonomic, when we're thinking about ergonomics. Conveyor racks, they're often used in shipping and receiving departments. So basically this is where material is loaded and unloaded onto big conveyor racks. So this is another type of thought that we want to think using the conveyor racks, okay? So two thoughts here. One is the supermarket flow rack, right? So this is where we're keeping a lot of the material, maybe the inventory that's going to get delivered to a particular workstation. This is this particular flow rack where we keep a good amount of quantity, or maybe a small amount of quantity, depending on how much it really you really do need to be able to have a material handler replenish the flow rack periodically, depending on how many times a day you may need to do that, okay? For the flow rack, the fundamental is just to really understand how much you really need of what in each single bin. So that's really an important question to ask. And the best way to find out any of these answers is to really understand that you have to go and ask the operators who are doing the particular job, who are using this particular station. Those are the guys and girls that are going to be able to really give you the best answer, really, for any of these questions. So definitely include everybody in these steps. Top or bottom level returns. If you have a level return, then you need to understand also the ergonomics, whether you're going to put them from the top or feed them from the bottom to the return area, okay? What we want to think about here is, more than anything, just keep the levels, rather keep the what we call the strike zone as the area between the shoulders and the knees. This is the area where the operator is going to be more efficient. So definitely make sure that that is where the material is being picked from, as opposed to putting a return in that particular area. So we're thinking about anywhere from the 24 to the 60-inch mark. This should be definitely kept for the worker operator to be able to utilize that space with the material that's being delivered. Again, the heights and the levels, very quickly, actually, let me just say that all this information here, you'll be able to get a PDF of this as well, and it's all available already online at flexpipeinc.com. So this is all the information that we have done, and it's just taken from our articles that are already available. So you can always check in the learning section how to build, and you're going to find this as well. And you'll also be receiving the PDF today. So if you ever needed to, you can find all these charts online as well. The heights and the levels. So here again, we're trying to find a medium so that everybody can be able to work efficiently. And that what we're talking about, the range from a minimum of 24 to a maximum of 60 inches is really the ideal area for that particular bin to be able to be most efficient, right? And then remember to factor in something that's very important, is the 3-inch clearance from the to load and unload the containers for the, the easy picking, if you will. So basically, whenever you're going to have a bin, make sure to don't make it so that it's just the bin, that it fits inside of that space, because then you might have a trouble, again, removing that bin from that area. So it's okay to add about 3 inches or so to that extra space there, just to be safe. Your slopes, again, this is determined a lot by the weight and the length, the span of your flow rack. So you really understand how much you need to do. A lot of times with these kind of flow racks where you have really long spans, there is going to be some adjustment that needs to be done on the floor. And that's really the only way that you can really fine tune it. You can draw it to as close as you can within the SketchUp and with the creator, but at some point you're gonna have to just put it on the floor and really test it and see if you need to lower or increase the slope depending on the length of those spans. Okay, so make sure to always test it out. All this stuff, all these characteristics of the different weights are going to determine basically how to define those slopes. We're going to jump into this actually in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and now jump into the actual drawing of a flow rack. So I'm just going to zoom back in here. So I'm still in SketchUp, so I tried to do the presentation within SketchUp just to make it easier and not have to click back and forth on screens. So with any flow rack that we want to go ahead and begin to draw, the first thing obviously is that we're going to go ahead and use all of our tools that we have here from the Flexpipe Creator. Okay, with these here, I'm going to go ahead and click open and select the kind of tube that I want. And then also I want to make sure that everybody sees the there we go. Okay, I just got a little slow there on the sec. All right, so if you ever want to, when you do actually select flow racks, you need to understand that you have to go through the preference dialog box. So basically the roller track is where you select it, and this is the area where you're going to draw it using the pencil tool from the SketchUp, okay? For now, we're gonna go ahead and begin with just the basic structure. And I'm gonna just use the blue and just go ahead and make a drawing here. And the thing is that we don't really know yet what to draw. So first, we're gonna go and bring in that bin that we have already selected, and we have these here in the library. So anytime that you open up the Flexpipe Creator library, you're gonna find all these different folders in here. And then if you look in the add-ons not available for purchase, I think in there you'll be able to find some bins. So for today, I'm just gonna use one of these bins as an example. So I'm just gonna go ahead and maybe just drag in this one here, and I'm just drag and drop into my drawing, and then I can go ahead and close that up. So again, that's our bin there. So let's go ahead and just bring it up a little bit so we can take some measurements. So now I'm just going to use my tape here, and I'm just going to get rid of a couple things that I won't be using in this scenario. So I'm just going to get rid of all the extra stuff here that we don't need. All right. So now let's just go ahead and take a measurement and see what we're dealing with, so that we understand how to draw that footprint. Okay, so we know that I got 17¼ in length. So I'm just gonna write that down, 17¼ And then I'm just gonna look at this from the top view, and I wanna see how deep it is. Okay, so we got 22 5/16. And then we can go ahead now and look at it from the side, and actually from the front, and see what the height is of this particular bin. Okay, so there we go. All right, so now we know we've got 6 and 16, so we've got 6 inches there. Okay. So with that, I can now understand that my footprint for today, we're going to do a very simple structure. It's just the fact that it's going to be the same for any kind of structure you want to do. We're just using the steps that we went through. So we're looking at the bin, and I'm going to go ahead and just draw a basic shape here approximately to what I need. I know that I have 17 and a quarter, and I have 22 and 5/16. So I'm going to draw at 24 by 20, and see what we do here. Okay, so we can see I just drew something, and we're definitely going to modify this. It's just a very basic shape that, if anything, is just helping me visualize what I'm trying to do right now. So that's going to give me a basic rough estimate. And I know that from there, I can go ahead and now, if I wanted to, I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this line drawing, of this wireframe. And with those two, I'm going to go ahead and now see that I have a footprint that I'm going to now begin to raise up. So I'm actually going to get rid of this floor because it's getting in the way of what I want to do. And I'm going to go ahead and raise these up. I'm going to use the face delete just to get rid of the extra faces once I bring this up. And I'm going to bring it up to 48. And I'll do the same with this one here. And then we can see that now we have that basic rectangle there, okay? So I'm just gonna have a very basic starter in the back on the top portion, and then we're gonna have a return on the bottom. So at 48, we should be able to get away with not having to add any supports in the middle. It's a short distance that we're covering. Once you get past 48 inches in span, when you're talking about 50 inches, 60 inches, 72 inches, then you really want to think about adding a support in the middle of your structure to be able to support that span, the weight that's going to be applied on that span on your roller tracks. Here, what we have is just rough shape, and I'm just going to get rid of extra lines that I don't really need at this point. What I do want to understand is that I'm going to use a 3-inch slope, so I'm just going to bring this one down 3 inches. Actually, I'm going to make a copy of that one, bring it down 3 inches, leave it there, get rid of that top one. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring this one down 6 inches. So now we have a 3-inch slope from the one in the back to the front. And I will go ahead and divide that space by 2. And that's where I'm going to go ahead and make that return, right? I don't want to be bending over if I don't have to. In this case, we're at a good height where we can go ahead and put it in the middle of that part there. So from there, I'm just going to bring this one down 3. So we have also a 3-inch drop in the return area on the back end. At this point, I want to go ahead and maybe create using my tape, I want to do guidelines so that I can go ahead and drag a line and make a mark at 3.25. 3.25 is going to be the closest I can get to the edge or this corner here without interfering with the corner fitting that is going to be there, or rather the connector that is going to be touching here, okay? So 3.5 is a number that you should definitely make a note of. And I'll make another one in the front, and I'll make another one here in the back. And you can see that with those 3, and we should be able to go ahead and do what we want to do now. So we're going to go ahead, and actually I'm going to bring another guideline over in the bottom part here at 3.5. And we can always modify these. So this is just a quick little way to really figure out where, as far as where do you want to really put those flow racks. You can see my guidelines here are just about 1 inch or so. inside. So we got 1.5 inches or so from the edge outside of the of that bin. So we should be with that bin in a good place for the casters, the wheels to sit, for the bin to sit on top of those conveyor wheels. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and again choose my, now I want to go ahead and choose the roller track as my option. So we're going to make sure that we have that selected. And then now I'm going to go use that pencil line to go ahead and connect from those guidelines where they intersect. So from that one there, I'm going to go ahead and come up over to the other end. As you can see now, we have a purple line that has been appeared, and that is exactly the color for the Flowrack, for the conveyors. I'm going to make a copy of this, and I'm going to bring it over to that other guideline I drew, and I'm going to go ahead and just draw the ones on the bottom and do the same thing, make a copy of it, and bring it over to the other side. Okay, so with that, we're going to go ahead and bring this over. And then I'm using the M key, or rather, yes, the M on the keyboard, or move icon. And then we're using the control key on the keyboard to just make a copy of something. And you can see that when the plus sign has been added to the that icon. Okay, so we have that there. I think we should be able to go ahead and get rid of these guidelines. And then we're going to go ahead and generate this structure now. So we have a few structures in this SketchUp drawing, so it might just take a little bit longer than usual, but they're going to be very helpful once we finish up with this particular part of the webinar. Okay, all right, here we go. Okay, so we can see that we have the conveyors set up in the slope. So let's actually go ahead, and I'm going to select it from my top view. And I'm just going to bring it away from all those other structures. So I'm just going to see, let's say 300. And then we're going to zoom back over here. And now we can go ahead and look at it from the side. Okay, so we can see our slopes, and we can see the span is going to be able to cover 2 of these bins that we have already selected. All right. And now what I want to do is I'm just going to go ahead and make a copy of this bin. I'm going to bring one up, and then I'll leave this one here, and then we can go ahead and actually use the rotate tool. For those of you who haven't used this one before, this is the rotate tool here that we can use to go ahead and position our bin. So if you want to find a point, so I'm going to use this reference point on the corner, and I'm actually going to go ahead and find a reference point on the top here where the roller track begins. And from there, I'm going to use my rotate tool. And I'm going to go ahead and find that point with the rotate tool. But it's very important that I lock this plane. So with the up, down, left, right arrows, you can choose which plane to lock the rotation tool. And make sure that you choose the right one so that you can go ahead and do everything the right way if in the right axes. So from there, what did I do? I clicked once on the one end, and then I went to the opposite end and I clicked again. And from there, I'm going to just drag it in the direction in which is going to be parallel to that roller track. So there we go. I've done that there. And we can see that we have rotated that. And now from there, I can go ahead and just actually make a copy of this one and bring it over to there. Okay, so now we have those 2 together. We can see that they fit well within that space, and we'll see if we need to modify anything in a little bit. So I want to do the same thing here. I'm just going to go ahead and bring this one over, because it's very important to be able to present the bins in your drawing to get you know, real-time understanding of if it's going to work or not, right? So that's why we want to make sure that we put these bins in the right place, so to be able to go ahead and understand that it is going the right way. So from there, we clicked once, click over to the other corner, and then again, we're just going to go ahead and find the top edge of that roller track. And then again, we're just making a copy from one reference point to the next. Okay, so let's see what that looks like from here. Okay, so we have a little movement there. Let's bring this guy back to where it should be. So I'm just selecting it. And now I'm going to go ahead and select all of the bins together and bring them back all together at once. Okay, so right there, we're looking at around, let's say 15.5. There we go. Okay, so we're one step closer now. We see that the space, our footprint is agreeing with the shape, the size of our bins. So now we need to think about, are we going to make this a stationary? Is this a moving mobile? Is it going to be just next to a workstation? All these questions you have to understand so that you can go ahead and add the particular type of casters or footing that you may need. In this case, we're just going to use the AV11, which is just the stationary feet. And then we can see here that I've selected the bottom. And now I'm going to use the toggle alternative to go ahead and I'm just waiting here for the icon to appear. So right now it's basically looking for all the options available for those particular AP ICAPs, which is the default. And here we go. So from here, let's go ahead and actually let's move it this way so we can get a better view. So maybe it's going to be easier if we just click here and go ahead and look for the one. Okay, so let's see. So we have one. We're going to zoom in with the shift button. I'm going to go ahead and select that second one, and you can use that shift keyboard key to go ahead and do that. And then we can see that we're going to go look for the AV11. It's just a matter of going to find, I might have already passed it actually. I think I went a little too fast. No, should be down there. Okay. Oh, there we go. I'm blind. Okay, so we'll wait for those to load and we'll go ahead and do the, oh, I see what's going on. Our original casters were over here. So we moved it from the point where we had previously generated the structure. So therefore the casters have been placed farther away from the structure itself. Okay, so those are the two AV11. Sometimes another way to do it is to go ahead and just grab those and make a copy of them, right? We can go ahead and copy that by looking for a reference point in the middle of this joint, making the plus sign appear. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring them over to the other end. Okay, so there we go. Now what we need to think about is the kind of stoppers that we want to go ahead and use so that these bins are actually going to stay in place. Okay, so right now we know that we're using starters on the entry point, and then we can choose whether or not we use something like a tab stop, a drop stop, or if we just actually use another pipe to go ahead and use it as a stopper as well. Okay, so those are the different options. And then actually let's go back to these and we can see what those options look like. Okay, so in this one here, this multiple level flow rack, we can see that they're using the drop stops as the ending stopper, yes? As opposed to maybe this one here. Let's see what they have. So they have the tab stop. So it really depends also on the amount of weight that is going to be stopped by these stoppers, right? So if it's something really heavy, you might want to go ahead and opt for the mount stoppers that are going to drop, like the ones I'm showing you here, as opposed to something that might be a little bit lighter that can be handled by a tab stop here, okay? And worst case scenario, if it's something that is really, really heavy, then we're going to maybe double up the pipe and use the actual pipe and the stopper to be able to really retain any bin or any weight from flipping over onto the other side of the flow rack, okay? So in that case here, let me just zoom in here without making everybody too dizzy. And let's show you here that right here we're using both, right? We're using a drop stop, and we're also using a double pipe to be able to reinforce that landing zone, right? So with that, we can go ahead and jump back to this one here. And in this case here, we're just going to select those two, and we're going to change those to just the tab stops. So again, everything is from the toggle alternative tool. We're going to go ahead and bring those there. Click on that there, and then they should be loaded. There we go. Okay, so we did the tab stops there. We have plenty space here for the visual aspect. Maybe this flow rack is going to be, we need visibility in this particular rack, so we know we have access. We can get in it with our hands. There's no problem. We don't have, in this case, we're not restricted by height, so we are able to be more, we can basically use the amount of height and place the particular bins in a particular place that we find comfortable. So that is a plus. And then here we're going to go ahead and basically go ahead and do the same thing, right? So we're just going to go find the tab stops for this one here. And give me 1 second. So there we go. There we go. Okay. And here we go. So once those get loaded up, what's the next thing we need to think about? We need to think about the fact that in this case, in this scenario, we have these sides on the structure that are actually working as guides as well. So perhaps we don't necessarily need to go ahead and add a guide to this structure, to this flow rack, this conveyor. I just want to show you what that looks like. And this little guy here, it's giving me a little bit of trouble. There we go. Okay, so this is the guides that you can go ahead and basically use as well. Right now, it really determines, it's all up to the individuals and what it's used for, that you're going to determine whether or not you're going to be using these particular guides. For now, I think that we should be okay. It's not moving an incredible long distance. So basically, you should be able to go ahead and just remove these guides for this particular example. So if we look at something like this one here, where it's a long span, then we can see that, yes, it's going to be optimal to go ahead and use those guides in that particular scenario where we're having to travel a long distance, like the ones we see here in this particular flow rack. Okay, and let's see here, we have another example here. Again, right, we're using those guides because we're going from one end. This is like a production line flow rack. So this is going to be a long span. So we want to make sure that those bins stay in place the whole length of the ride, okay? So in this case here, we're going to be able to get away without having the guides there. But if we look at the bottom, we do need to add something to these here, right? So we don't, so those don't fall out. So very quickly, we're going to just get rid of the connectors, tubes, and the bins. And now we're going to go ahead and basically just go ahead and create a mark from the starting point. I'm just going to connect from that starting point, and I'm just going to run it straight across like so. But before I do that, actually, I want to go ahead and just make sure I go back to the pipe as opposed to using the Flowrack that we've been using to draw. I want to make sure that we choose the blue pipe that we were working with. Okay, so that's it there. We're going to close that out. And now I'm going to go ahead and redraw that line. Okay, so I'm just going to connect it from the starting point all the way straight across. And I will do the same thing on the opposite side here. There we go. Okay, let's just generate that once again. And everything else should still be there once we add that new modification. Once we have this loaded up, then we're going to think about the next step. And that is going to be, here we go, let's bring this back. And we mentioned about adding bracing, adding some kind of support for the Flowrack in the end to basically solidify the structure so that we're able to hold the capacity that we really wanted to hold. Okay, so in this scenario, maybe we don't necessarily need to add a pipe in the middle here to add a support across in that sense, but it would be good to perhaps add some angles on the base of this just to stiffen up that base to make sure that it doesn't want to move anywhere on us. Okay, so let's go ahead and just make some angles here, and I'll keep these short and tight, and I'm just going to go up 12 inches this way, and I'm going to go 12 inches the opposite way, and I just want to go ahead and do a nice tight 45-degree there to be able to stiffen up those corners. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm grabbing a vertical tube and I'm joining that with a horizontal tube to be able to really strengthen up that entire area. Okay, with that there, I'm going to go ahead and just again make a copy of this and bring it over to the other side. Make sure that it's on the right place, at the right place. And from there, actually what I want to do is just look for the area, the midpoint. I want to just find the midpoint from here to here because I want to try something here. I want to go ahead and maybe use a guideline in the middle. And from there, I want to go ahead and copy these angles here. So it's just a little tip there. If you want, you can always copy those by making a copy from the middle of this. So if we find the center of this guideline here, excuse me, the center of our structure. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. We just want one of those. So we're going to do this. We're going to bring it over to the other side and divide by 2. And there we go. Okay, so that's the center point here. So I want to select these 2 angles that I created. And it's just another little way of doing what we're trying to do, right? So we're just going to go ahead and with that intersection point, I'm going to click once and I'm going to drag out. But remember, we want to make a copy. So I want to make sure I hit the control button so that we can see the added plus appear. And then from there, we're going to just come from one end and bring those guys all the way around to the end, okay? So I drew a bunch of guidelines there, but it's just to show you guys how to be able to find the center of your structure. And also to show you that you can go ahead and just make a copy of that angle to go ahead and place them on the opposite ends, okay? So there we go. And that's going to basically give us a nice solid structure. And we should be able to replicate this with any structure that you are trying to do as far as a Flowrack, right? The procedure is the same. We're looking for the space, we're looking for the bin. We're looking for the footprint. We're trying to understand the path. And then from there, we're breaking down what kind of distance, slope we're going to be needing for that particular structure, and then from there how it's going to be essentially stopping on the ending point, okay? And then obviously we're thinking very, very much so for what is going to be the ergonomics. Like I mentioned in the past, in the beginning, and if you've ever done a training outside where I've met you guys, I always say that it's really, really important that we ask the operator, the individual who's there every single day working in that particular area, what it is that they need, and they're going to give you the best answer for you to find the best solution for that particular area, okay? So we drew this guy from scratch, or these all have been downloaded from our website, okay? So these are already drawn, like I mentioned in the beginning. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and download or anybody can download. We're going to just explode this here just to show you that we can also go ahead and modify this if it's going to be a little bit easier for you guys to do so that way, okay? So if you wanted to have something that looks a little bit like this or resembles what you need, it's just a matter of adjusting some heights, then nothing to it, right? We're going to be able to do that. And I'll show you how really quickly. We're just going to make a group of this here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and grab this one here and bring him this way. All right. Now that we're here, we can see that we can get rid of all the components and any extras that might be there. And then we can go ahead and now begin to modify this structure if we really needed to, okay? So you can go ahead and make measurements, take a dimension, and see if you need to just adjust this by 3 inches. Then you can go ahead and just lift that area up 3 inches, right? So we're using the move icon to be able to go ahead and modify a already generated structure, okay? What's important is just to, whenever you want to modify any kind of structure, just make sure to get rid of the tubes and the connectors so that you're able to really see the actual line, just to make sure that you're really modifying what you're looking to do, okay? So again, we can do that with any structure that we have on the flexpipeinc.com website, all right? That is going to wrap up the Flowrack webinar for today. I want to just say one thing, and I'll bring it back this way to the little display I have here. And the loading capacity is very important here. And this is one that I wanted to show you. And this is if you needed to add a support in the middle, or you're going to have a drop in angle and pitch, then this is going to be the drop mount that is called the R40TU. It's a union, and it's going to be able to be used in this way here to be able to drop. Maybe you don't need to drop. It's just about an inch or so, just to maybe present those bins. So this is something that I wanted to make sure that you guys see also. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that if you're using if you're going to be creating a Flowrack that is really a long span, then really think about adding that support in the middle of the structure to be able to support that, okay? So don't forget that when you're past the 48-inch mark. And then again, this is something we already talked about. So it's just to double up the bars in the front where you're going to be receiving the material. So with those 10 steps, if you are able to really focus and define those 10 steps, then you should be able to have a nice solid structure when it's all said and done, okay? With that in mind, I just want to say that if you needed any extra help or whatever the case may be, then we can always offer more information at flexpipeinc.com. You can send me any questions, any comments at my email here, esolano@flexpipeinc.com. You can check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and you can also check out our YouTube videos, okay? I'm available through the chat. just look me up through the Learning tab on the Flexpipe Inc. From there, you can book a session with me, and we can talk about something that you saw today a little bit more in detail. So if there's something in particular, we can go ahead and just make one-on-one sessions and really focus on that. So any questions that you have, go ahead and send them over to me today, and I'll go ahead and answer those and get them to you as soon as I can, along with the recording of this webinar, if that's something that you would like. And that is it for today. I just want to say, stay safe, and I'll see you guys on the YouTube, or send me a chat. Okay, guys, take care and have a good day.